Gamers and viewers, welcome back. Today we'll be talking about Resident Evil Revelations, which was available on the 3DS. Now it's out on the PC, the Xbox 360, and the PS3.
I might be able to shoot it off.
Let's get something out of the way. The first thing is that this game is going to be a port of the 3DS version of the game, with new content such as one new enemy, a new Inferno mode where it's really hard and the enemy placements are different, and harder challenges. And somewhat HD graphics. The game had a huge buzz going for it. It's a great third-person shooter, but it does have some pros and cons and flaws that do exist for the game. The controls itself for the game are okay, to say at least. You can rebind certain keys in the menu. I find that the dodging and the walking, every other button works fine except for one thing. The mouse control does not work correctly in this game. It feels really clunky. I've tried to mess with the sensitivity settings, nothing's worked. There's no mouse acceleration, so it's really sloppy on this part. And what happens is I miss all my shots, I waste ammo, and it causes me to die sometimes. This is something that's actually repairable in a patch, so hopefully they'll patch this up, fix the mouse problem, because it doesn't happen in their other games, so we'll see about that. The graphics were alright. It was just really decent even at full blast on my video card. It's not necessarily redrawn or anything, just really upscaled. Some of it reworked out, polished out to look really decent on the PC. The textures can be okay, and some of the graphics were really murky at certain parts of the game, but I overlooked past that. But for sure, the most noticeable improvement to the game would have to be the graphics of the characters. The character details, their hair, if you look at it, it looks really nice. The other thing that's still the same is the animation. You can't really change animation, but they're okay, a little bit clunky at times. The other thing is the UI is okay. It's kept really simple, easy to navigate, which is nice for the PC version. For me, I barely even used the UI except for the safe where I was changing items. Other than that, it's alright. I always like to talk about the enemy AIs in video game. I'll even talk about the AI in this one. It's what you expect in a Resident Evil game. They're mutated beings and they're fun. Sometimes they can be really stupid and predictable, like a hunter will strafe on you, or certain humans, mutated humans, will do certain patterns. And then there's some certain enemies that are just, just broken. It's a little bit of a bug problem, but hopefully that can be fixed, if anything, maybe. The only real bug I've encountered for the AI is the hunter one, but other than that, everything else works out fine. They do what they're supposed to do, so I'm fine with that. So the story of the game starts off with you playing as Jill with her partner Parker, who is off to save Chris. And Chris is apparently, he's lost contact with the BSAA branch. They're the Bioterrorism Security Assessment Alliance. Instead, what happened was that this was really just a trap set up by Veltro, a terrorist group who attacked the Terra Grigia with the T-Abyss virus strain. Chris actually, with his partner Jessica elsewhere, was investigating Veltro themselves, and from there you play and uncover the whole story that unfolds, what's really happening behind Veltro, and more about the T-Abyss virus. During the story, you'll experience the gameplay between Jill and Parker, Chris and Jessica, and also Jackass and Grinder, and at the same time there will be flashback episodes where you play during the Terra Grigia panic. The gameplay itself consists of pretty much episodic gameplay, which I find pretty funny. It gives you a preview of itself after you beat it, in case you've forgotten what happened, and let's say you didn't pay attention to it, or you saved right there, whatnot. The map itself for each episode is limited exploration. It's not really full roam explorable at any times, and it pretty much contains a lot of backtracking moments to find certain keys to access certain areas, mostly on a ship. But yes, the story does take place mostly on a ship, so sometimes there are different areas for different characters for their flashback, such as a snowy mountain, or you'll get flashback like Terra Grigia and play with certain characters during then. But yes, most of the gameplay is going to be consisted of you backtracking a lot of places, solving puzzles to access certain areas, just limited puzzles, and finding keys to access the next area. The thing about these areas is it's straightforward to where you need to go. The map is highlighted with a yellow circle, and pretty much as long as you follow that circle, you're on your way. So it shows you exactly where you go. The game holds your hand at that point. And just to switch things up with the gameplay, there are swimming later on in the game. There's a bit of rail shootings at a certain point in the game, and some parts of it where you kill mobs of enemies coming at you, and you have to, kill them with your partner before they overwhelm you guys and kill you all. All of this stuff is actually thrown in there to keep you from being bored with the game, which is a decent idea. The mechanics with the game is pretty simple. You can only pretty much carry 3 guns. Each gun can only be customized with parts that you find without having to scan. I'll talk about scanning next. Some of the best parts come from mutated beings that are really hard to kill in key areas later in the game. The guns can only be changed out or customized from the safe box. Unless you find it out there, you can actually swap weapons out and put the other gun down and it'll automatically go back to the safe. And just a cool tidbit, the safe is the only place that plays the safe music. Depending on which difficulty you play, you'll find it hard on you if you have a certain amount of ammos, because there is only a limited amount of ammo that you can carry until you expand your pouch to carry more of finding these ammo pouches. You find them out there in the game by looking for them pretty much. There's no way to upgrade them really. And the weapon customization is really quite simple and straightforward. Each gun has a certain amount of slots, and by utilizing these slots you can put certain effects to them, if you want to call it parts like that, and there could be part 1, part 2, or part 3. The better the number, the higher the damage the parts does, or the better the stats are. Another mechanic that's included in the game is a gun called the Genesis, which is a very tedious mechanic. Pretty much the point of it is to help you find ammo. It goes into first person, there's a visor, you look around, an item will show up and you hold your left mouse button. And it helps you find, build up a certain percentage towards earning more herbs. You might find some more ammo that way. There's no real secret items really, except for handprints. There's no herb mixing in this game. There's no aid spray, none of that stuff, which makes the Genesis a huge gimmick rather than being a cool mechanic than it could have been. I mean, if it could scan for secret passageways, maybe gun parts, because gun parts you don't need to scan to find them. You can actually find them in certain other areas. I mean, if you actually take a look at it, it's clearly not a mechanic that, was really needed for the console or PC version. It's more like a gimmick for the handheld version of the game. I found that the game was very lacking in the sense of immersion. I mean, some of the blood and the trails and all that stuff, it's pretty detailed a little bit, but it was just hard to immerse into the game graphically and environmentally. The Genesis gun itself just totally ruins the immersion at time with the scanning, and there's moments in the game where jump scares were going to happen. It was so obvious that it's lost its magic. Oh, check it out, she's getting killed and she's dying. I better scan her for some stuff just in case. Never know. There is one part of the game where you run away from a mutated being. I don't want to ruin the name of the being, but it's similar to the Nemesis from Resident Evil Nemesis, and if you played Nemesis, you understand how that feeling is. It was scary, you're limited on ammo, you can't really kill it. On this one you can, but it takes a lot of bullets, and at the same time, the being that's chasing you is going to be full of personality. The best part about this game, finally, is the replayability, really. It's not about the campaign. The game does come with a multiplayer mode called Raid, where you play with another co-op and you play with your friend. The point of Raid is to pretty much go through a certain level as fast as you can, kill enemies, find some items, level up from that, get new guns, and level up the guns, and basically you fight with, the enemies with your friend. And that's the most important thing. Playing with friends makes it at least enjoyable and gives you some hours of fun. Otherwise, you can always go back and do the campaign at a harder difficulty. I mean, Infernal is really pissed hard right now. So hard that, it's just impossible to kill a lot of the mobs in the game because it takes a ton of bullets just to kill them off. Anyways, the final verdict for the game is that it's going for $50, and for 50 hard-earned dollars, you get a port of the game, which is not, to be ungrateful or anything, but it's a decent title. It isn't worth the value, especially since it's been out for such a long time. The game is a decent Resident Evil game itself. I thank Capcom for definitely bringing out the game, but it's not worth the value that's being asked for, especially from a port that's very expensive. $20 to $35. If they did that, the game would be much better. But to toss a port at you, a handheld port at that, and just up some of the stuff in it and give you a $50 price tag is pretty much on par as the enjoyment of a AAA title, if you want to call it that. Anyways, the real problem with a lot of people, like I said, is going to be definitely the value. So you might want to rent this game, or you might want to wait for the price to drop. It's not to say that this is a horrible game. It's a good game. It's just, like I said, price too high, and the fact that you can spend your 50 or 60 on something else that's a new IP and get a hell of a lot more out from that. And in terms of the game itself, it is probably the Resident Evil that's closer to the old school ones. It's not exactly like the old one, but it is close to it. So that's just my opinion about that. Anyways, guys, make up your own opinion about the game. You know, make your own decisions if you want to buy the game or not, or whatever you want to do. But hey, the most important thing is you're having fun. So remember, if you like the video, fan up, subscribe, whatever, comment on the bottom, tell your friends about it. Other than that, game on.